table, yeah, that stuff. Maybe that's not too bad. And I'll tell you why it's a blockade, because, again, the Helms-Burton Law gives the U.S. the U.S. the power to sue corporations for anything that they're investing in Cuba. And the U.S., thanks to Clinton, there's also all of Cuba's assets that are being frozen by the United States Treasury have been seized by a number of lawsuits that are extremely outrageous, if you heard of, but I'll mention them. And the other is, here's one measure, for example. All telephone conversations and calls, the communications between the U.S. and Cuba, AT&T gets their part of the revenue, and Cuba's share of the revenue is frozen by the United States. The United States seizes all the money that Cuba is entitled to from the phone calls and held in U.S. banks. So it's really interesting that Cuba still allows the communications, even though they don't get any money from it. And due to the law that Clinton signed, there has been a spate of these lawsuits. That's why I say blockade, to give you an idea of how damaging it is to Cuba. There have been a number of lawsuits allowing U.S. citizens to sue Cuba, and some of them by some of these families of, for example, CIA pilots who were flying over Cuba in the Bay of Pigs invasion. In 2007, 3 years ago, $91 million of Cuba's assets was awarded to families of 2 CIA agents who flew over Cuba and were shot down. An act of self-defense by Cuba, right? Another man, Howard, in 2007, the family of Robert Fuller was awarded $400 million. In May 2007, a Miami-Dade circuit judge awarded an admitted CIA agent who is still alive, Gustavo Villaldo. He brags that he helped capture Che Guevara to be killed. He was awarded $1 billion recently, 3 years ago. Why? Because he claimed without any evidence or proof in a Miami court, he goes into court, judge hears and says, I award you $1 billion. Because he said, Fidel Castro and Che Guevara made my father commit suicide. That's all he had to say. No evidence, no proof. This is not an exaggeration. Why did he say he committed suicide? His father was one of those very wealthy people in Cuba who got his property confiscated, and he couldn't take the idea, couldn't stand the idea of living, as a worker, so he killed himself. So now, 50 years later, Cuba's assets are, $1 billion judgment. And on, 21 million, 253 million, 138 million, 1.5 million, and here's a new one. This is Cuba's assets, and they've already now seized everything that's in the New York banks recently. Now they're going after the money that Cuba has in European banks. That's why it's a blockade. It's an economic war. And this is harmful. We're talking about Cuba's nickel income being reduced. Well, this is another blow to them. And it's a small country. Here's another big one, though. In Miami court in February of this year, I said that there are 14,000 Cuban medical doctors in Venezuela, right? And they volunteer to go. They go for 2 years at a time. Sometimes they stay longer. I know many of those people there because I've met them in Venezuela and I knew them in Cuba. They go for 2 years, voluntary. Well, 7 of these people and 1 nurse who served in the international mission in Venezuela have now defected to the U.S. They're now in Miami, and they have a $450 million lawsuit against Cuba and Venezuela's oil company, PDVSA. And they're suing because they said they were reduced to slavery in Venezuela for having to work there. That's just bullshit. And it's part of a class action suit, and it will allow any other Cuban doctor who wishes to join it for the price of $50 million each. And why is this possible? Because George Bush in August 2006 signed a law that, as I say here, probably nobody in the U.S. even knows about, called the Cuban Medical Professional Parole Act. For for any Cuban doctor serving in these Cuban missions abroad who defects to the U.S. will be entitled to be part of this lawsuit. What is this? What do you think this? What do you think about hearing about that? I'd like to know someone's comment about that. You see, the U.S. government is using everything they can to bring Cuba down. I classify it as 1,000 arrows aimed at Cuba, things we don't even know about. And there's many other things. I've written a whole document about the things that Cuba's facing with the U.S. So that's the blockade. What is Cuba's trade? They have more relations with countries around the world than at any time in their history since the revolution. Because a lot of countries have received assistance from Cuba and over time have said, you know what, we're not going to play the U.S. game anymore. For example, the Organization of American States, which is dominated by the U.S., all the Latin American and all the Western Hemispheric countries, including Canada and the U.S., they expelled Cuba in 1962 for being Marxist-Leninists. That's why they kicked them out. And this year, at their summit, they said, we removed that stipulation, and you're welcome to apply. And Cuba said, well, we're not really interested anymore. They did. But last October, in which has become a yearly ritual for the last 18 years, in the largest vote ever at the United Nations General Assembly, a vote every October on the question of whether the U.S. should lift the U.S. blockade, and they call it a blockade. And this last year, 183 countries voted in favor of Cuba, and 3 voted against. And I want to ask you for extra credit. Who were the 3 countries?
U.S., Israel, and Saudi Arabia.
Who?
Saudi
Good
Arabia.
guess. Good guess. Anybody else want to guess?
Colombia, right?
U.S. Israel is right. Who else?
Colombia.
Good guess. No, Palau. Palau is an island of 40,000 people, like 10,000 miles away from Cuba. I think it's exactly 10,000.
That's my next guess.
I want to go to Palau, and I want to go talk to all the people, and I bet you next year they turn in favor of Cuba. But actually, the thing is that Palau is right now pleading for the U.S. to aid it with $15 million. They're in complete dependency on the U.S. government. That's the only reason they do it. And you asked about,
The travel ban, the bill in the House to relieve the chapter.
you know how like when the House and the Senate have to reconcile bills and they have to change the language, and the 2 bills are identical in the House and the Senate to lessen the restrictions on U.S. agribusiness selling food to Cuba, very restrictive, and also to allow basic lifting the travel ban, that is, not enforcing the travel ban on Americans. And it would seem that it could pass, but in fact, the Obama administration, I think, has let the Democrats know in both houses, don't even bring it to my table. The same thing that happened with Bush 3 years ago. It was the same bill 3 years ago under Bush. And it's political expediency. You know how, just to talk about another issue, to show how the Democrats and Republicans are cowards when it comes to standing up for what's right. When the governors met in July in Boston, all the 50 governors of the country, and they met for their yearly conference. And at that time, it was announced that the Obama administration was suing Arizona for that anti-immigrant law. There was a major New York Times article where 12 Democrat governors at the conference complained publicly, why is Obama doing this to us in this election year? He's making us look bad because we think the public wants tighter immigration and, troops on the border or whatever. Why is he doing this? So, you think they don't want an immigration, justice? They don't want anything about Cuba coming before them. And there's rumors from people that we know who talk to congressmen that what may happen instead is Obama is, in fact, unnamed U.S. officials, I don't know if you read about this, about a month ago said, in 2 weeks, Obama is going to allow licensing for groups to go. That is limited licensing. And the purpose is not to give Americans the right to see Cuba for ourselves. The idea is a plan of destabilization. There's a big destabilization plan by Obama underway. Part of it, remember I told you that just now that Cubans are going to be allowed to have some self-employment? Well, Obama has just released $3 million in a pilot program that's going to be increased to bring $3 million secretly into Cuba to give money to individuals to become capitalists. They said, we want to